All right, let's talk about something that I think we've all seen happen. You get a group of really smart, capable people in a room, and then you add a little bit of pressure, and suddenly everything just falls apart. Today, we're going to get into the science of why our smartest groups can completely collapse right when we need them the most.
I mean, you've been there, right? That crucial meeting at work, that tense conversation with family, a big community debate. It always starts out with the best of intentions. But then, somewhere along the way, things just go completely off the rails. It feels like everyone's talking past each other, and the collective IQ in the room just takes a nosedive. So, why? Why does that happen?
Okay, here's our game plan for digging into this. First, we're going to look at what it means when good groups go bad. Then, we'll dive right into your brain to see what's actually happening under pressure. From there, we'll look at the two paths a group can take, becoming a mob or a mastermind. Then we'll get practical with a toolkit for sanity. And we'll finish up with a really interesting twist, when it might actually be necessary to let it all fall apart.
So let's put a name to this thing we all experience. It's a phenomenon called context collapse. It's that exact moment when all the subtlety, all the nuance of a situation just, well, it evaporates. Let's really break down what that feels like.
Yeah, this is that moment. It's when a group of perfectly intelligent people just loses the plot. The ability to see any shades of gray? Gone. It's like the world flattens out into black and white, good guys and bad guys. We basically lose our collective mind, right at the moment we need it most.
Now, to really get why this happens to a whole group, we have to start by zooming in, way in, and looking at what's happening inside a single human brain. Because what's going on in there is basically a biological tug of war.
So think of it like this. You've got two key players in your head. On one side, you've got your amygdala. That's the alarm system. It's ancient, it's fast, and its main job is to scream threat at the first sign of trouble. On the other side, you've got your prefrontal cortex. That's the thinker. It's the slow, wise part that says, hang on a second, what's the full context here? Is this really a threat? Under pressure, these two are locked in a battle for control.
And that brings us to a really crisp definition. Context collapse is that moment when the fast, loud alarm system literally hijacks the slow, quiet thinking system. Your brain stops discriminating. It stops asking, is this situation unique? And it starts generalizing. Oh, this is just like that other bad thing. And poof, all the nuance is gone.
Okay, so that's what happens in one brain. Now, what happens when you put a bunch of these brains, each with its own internal tug of war, into a room together and turn up the heat? Well, that internal battle suddenly becomes the group's external reality.
This is the fundamental choice, the fork in the road for any group under pressure. Does the group become a giant distributed alarm system where everyone's amygdala is just echoing and amplifying everyone else's? Or does it become a distributed prefrontal cortex, a collective brain that can actually think better together than any one person could alone?
And you can see the two paths so clearly here. The mob, well, it's a threat amplifier. It gets addicted to certainty, it starts looking for someone to blame, and things escalate fast. But the mastermind does something incredible called collective co-regulation. Now, that's just a fancy way of saying the group actually helps its members stay calm and think straight. It fosters curiosity and uses disagreement to get smarter, not to tear itself apart.
So, what's the secret? What's the one thing that determines whether a group becomes a mob or a mastermind? It all hinges on this one simple but totally profound variable. Is it possible to disagree in this group without it feeling like a threat to your relationships or your identity or your sense of belonging? If disagreement feels survivable, curiosity can live. If it doesn't, we simplify to survive.
Okay, this all sounds great, but it can also feel a little intimidating. So what can we actually do when we feel a group starting to spiral? Well, the good news is there's a practical toolkit we can pull out. Let's call it the anti-collapse protocol.
Everything starts with this. This is the prime directive. Seriously, just having someone say this out loud can change the entire energy in a room. The goal isn't for my side to beat your side. The goal is for us to stay in contact with reality, together.
So here are 3 core moves from the toolkit. First, map reality. This just means getting clear on what's what. Separate the observable data, the D, like sales went down 10%, from the story we tell about it, the S, like our entire strategies of failure, and the underlying value we hold, the V, like we need to be the best in the market. Just separating those 3 stops people from arguing past each other. Second, check the temp. On a scale of 0 to 10, how emotionally activated is this room? If it's a 7 or higher, you've got to pause. No good thinking happens when everyone's alarm system is blaring. And third, a powerful way to disagree, steal and soften. Before you state your disagreement, you first steelman their point. That means you state it back to them, maybe even better and stronger than they did. Then you soften your own entry by saying what you're not sure about before you share your view. This builds trust, not a battleground.
Now, to make all this work, it really helps to have people playing two key roles. You need a mapper, that's the person who protects the truth by keeping those DSV distinctions clean, and you need a regulator. That's the person who protects the conditions for truth, who keeps an eye on the emotional temperature and makes sure everyone feels safe enough to be honest.
Okay, now hold on, because this is where things get really, really interesting. We've spent all this time talking about how to stop a group from collapsing. But what if sometimes collapse isn't a bug? What if it's actually a feature?
Let's really lean into this question for a second. Is all collapse bad? What if the entire framework, the whole shared context the group is using to make sense of the world, what if that is what's broken? What if the frame itself actually needs to die?
This is such a critical distinction. There are two kinds of collapse. There's threat collapse, which is the bad kind we've been talking about. It's driven by fear. It leads to enemy-making and simplification. That's a system failure. But then there's frame collapse. This is actually driven by truth. It happens when the group's old map just doesn't match the territory of reality anymore. This isn't a failure. It's a necessary phase transition. It's growing pains.
And you can feel it when a necessary collapse is on the way. You start seeing these signs everywhere. Persistent contradictions that people have to ignore to get through the day, moral injury where people have to violate their own values just to stay in the group. And maybe the biggest sign of all, the old solutions you keep trying just end up recreating the same problem over and over again.
So when that happens, the goal is something called a frame funeral. It's about consciously letting that old broken worldview die. But, and this is the crucial part, doing it in a way that doesn't let human dignity, the commitment to truth, or the group's ability to think clearly die along with it.
And really, this brings us to the bottom line. We're not going to avoid pressure. High-stakes conversations and tense moments are just part of life, part of being in any organization or community. So the real choice we have isn't if we'll face pressure. The only choice we have is how we're going to meet it.
And so this is the question that we're left with for every single group we're a part of. When things get tough, when the pressure is on, are we going to become a distributed alarm system just amplifying each other's fear and reactivity? Or can we become a true learning community? A group that has the courage and the skill to stay present with hard things and turn disagreement into shared wisdom. That choice is up to us.